and welcome to our new video reviews platform, a collaboration between Dance Dialogues and Dance Art Journal. I'm Rachel, and this month I'm joined by Ines as our guest from Dance Art Journal. So the idea of this platform is to talk about a selection of shows that we've seen across the last month. And the idea is to just offer a more informal and conversational way of reviewing dance. So yeah, I'm really excited to have Ines join us for March.
Yeah, and I think this is an amazing format to showcase the wide range of dance out there. And I'm super excited about this collaboration with Dance Art Journal because, yeah, we cover so much from the independent sector to leading venues. They'll be really nice to talk through in a more maybe unexpected format and in a different way. So yeah, looking forward to it.
And hopefully we're going to try and cover a mix of independent work and the larger venues as well with this platform. So yeah, we'll get started with talking about the shows that we've seen across March. It's been a super busy month. There was a lot of shows we saw as part of a festival called Dance Reflections, and that's actually going to be in another episode. So this one is just on shows outside of that that we've seen between us. We've been to, I think we've been to them individually, so we're each going to talk about those shows and then maybe chat a little around that.
In the moonlight, whisper soft, two voices rise, the night aloft, hidden deep, where the shadows play, wild hearts, we find our way.
So the first piece we're going to talk about is Tirabasso's new work, In the Bushes, and this was performed at the place right back at the beginning of March, so I'll test my memory. What I really liked about this piece was that the dancers just went for it, and it was relentlessly absurd as a work. It had this like awkward, strange physicality. It was really quite creature-like. They were on their tiptoes, there was leaps, they were like grabbing at their bodies and each other, quite like in a manipulative way to the body, like body manipulation, maybe that's a good word. And what was also very particular about it was the use of vocals. There was speech, there was words, but a lot of the time it was also just these sounds like erupting from the dancers' bodies. And I think for a lot of it, from memory, it was in silence. I think there were points of music, but for like a large chunk of it, it was just the sounds that were coming out of the dancers' bodies. Which I think added to this kind of sense of like strangeness, absurdity, and sometimes that was kind of an artificiality, and sometimes it just felt like total freedom and liberation, which was kind of cool.
How was your experience watching it?
I think for me it was like this piece that you really had to just dive into with the performers. You didn't need to like try and make sense of all of it. I think there's moments that would like come out and mean something to you, but I think that would be different for like everyone watching the piece, which is something I always love about dance for sure. Like for me, the moments that came out were like these kind of more primal, instinctive moments with emotions like death or desire. They always embodied them in quite an animal way. It was like seeing different types of creatures being explored by the dancers on stage, like nothing overly, but just like elements of different animals, which gave it this real primal thing, especially with the sounds. But it remained very human as well, which was quite a nice balance I think they found in this work. And I think for me it felt like maybe because of that, it was just kind of questioning like how we see ourselves as humans, like what are the fronts we put on, what's artificial, what's really there underneath, and maybe how different are we from animals. But yeah, it was just really playful, kind of ridiculous, in a good way, and sometimes really funny, sometimes like a little more serious, and I think it could be the kind of thing some people would love and some people would hate. For me, I think you just throw yourself into it, watching it, and that helps me just like enjoy and go along for the ride with them. So that was my feeling watching Tirabasso's In the Bushes.
It was great to hear about Leah's work, and In my month of March, I went to a mixed bill at Chisenhale Dance Space, curated by Finleigh Zack, the artistic director of Finleigh Zack Dance. It was called Common Threads, and it was a really cozy evening of a mixed bill, curated by Finleigh. And it felt that like all the works somehow linked to each other. It was kind of an interesting evening.
And what was did they have, you said they linked, was there a common theme across that or context for the works? How did she bring them all together?
Yeah, so you could really feel the evening focus a lot on human interactions and connections with ourselves and with each other. So it was really nice to have that feeling in all of the bills, and also amplifying global voices and different choreographers and different styles, but also somehow link it with this common ground.
Nice. What was the first work you saw in the evening?
It was The Power of Perspective by Finleigh Zack, and it was very fluid. It was very striking in very moments. It started with a solo. I think that brings that impact right away. You could see the other performers in the room; they were there. But it started with a solo, and this was quite strong. Also because the dancer was wearing red. It was a big contrast with the colors worn by the rest of the dancers. That was white mostly. So it created a different contrast. But at the same time, the movement was really fluid. It never really stopped. You could really dive into that with the music. So it was really a powerful opening, I think. And then it really felt like an exploration between the solo, the duets, trios, so in different formats, but also thinking about the relationships, how you really move with yourself, with these encounters, what happens when you meet one more person, when you meet a full room of people. It was kind of a good balance between these interactions, and something that really stayed with me were some of the moments when they were pausing for a bit and they were trying to reach each other with the hands. But the hands had these spider shakes, interesting, but kind of reaching each other and creating that encounter and touch, but somehow with some tension in the hands. You could really feel that sometimes trying to reach each other in a different way can be a bit complicated or more or harder than you think. It could really it really amplified this power of connections, and the ensemble movements were also really, really good and powerful.
And did it feel that those moments of connection were kind of amplified by being in that intimate space at Chisenhale? Because it is quite different watching work in a studio setting with less tech around it than on a main stage in a theatre where you've got all that light and sound and different things to hold a space. So I wondered if that maybe just brought more attention to those intimate moments and connections between the performers.
Yeah, for sure. Especially in the moments in between duets or solos, where you see the other performers staying in the room and the way they were looking at each other, keeping the dialogue alive, even if they are not performing or moving at that time, but they were there and still present, and they were still communicating. So that was a really engaging way also to set up that, because I think it was a nice choice because they could move and they could be somewhere else and coming back, but they just stay there, and it was I think it was a good choice also.
There's nowhere to hide.
Exactly.
Amazing. And what were the other works, some of the other works you enjoyed?
So another piece I saw on that evening, it was by VIGOR dance company called MOTHERLOAD, and I think that one really, really stayed with me, especially because of the contrast of the movement comparing to the first piece that I talk about. It was really raw, a bit more violent, not in a really strong way, but you could really have a sense of tension around it, and a sense of vulnerability also in the dancers, while still they were moving together, and you could really feel again that topic of connection, interaction, but you feel more tension around each time they were moving with each other, and I love the costumes. They were wearing red dresses and high heels at some points, and sometimes they were taking the shoes off, and another performer was following with the hands and taking over the shoes and like following around. That was really nice and a bit more funny to cut off a bit that tension and rawness that I was talking about. And it was a moment with a disco ball, also to like illuminate the rest of the space, and with some club music, so there was also another engaging element to it. But this piece was inspired by Pedro Almodovar's films, and it could really like place central the character of woman, and especially with the dresses and the way it moves. It was a really interesting shock between this like bit more like aggression and rawness, but at the same time like placing the woman's side and a bit more feminine with the movements and with the dress. And the way they finished, it was really like strong, because they were moving all together as one, the trio, and they were just stepping back really, really slow. Because the rest of the work was really strong in terms of movement. They were falling down on the floor, coming back, moving quick. So it was like quite high intensive, and then just finish with that slowness and stepping to the back gradually, kind of like allow audiences to breathe out and take a break. Another piece as part of the mixed bill was Taziland by Premier Dance Theatre. I was very intrigued in the beginning because we came back from the interval and there were some piles of papers on the floor, and there was actually one of the dancers emerging from the pile of papers, and that was quite strong, and that was their surprise element. But also there was another thing they introduced right at the beginning, which was the light. There was a very strong light flashing in and kind of like shake us all in the audience. And I think it was really like to make that point of this is not a very safe environment, because the work takes back to East Germany and some of the Cold War times. So it kind of brings a more cold perspective and friendly environment, and you can really feel that through that light, that shock. But also the way that the dancers were moving and interacting with the pile of papers. It was quite interesting because you could see they were building different paths, and they were building something new each time they were dancing and moving with each other. And again, that interaction element was still there, especially through the duets. I think in this one was probably the one that you feel a bit more distance between the performers. But it was quite interesting to see them drawing the paths with the papers and coming back together. The last one I saw was Memory Traveler, and that one had lots of projections from nature, especially sea elements. So it was a kind of a relaxing bit after the previous works, and they explored the feeling of grief and being together after falling apart, and there was really this sense of reunion, and it was kind of a flow throughout the whole time, dancing together with each other, but it felt very smooth and very trying to make peace with another and the other self, and through the movement it was all very smooth. They were running sometimes, but everything felt a bit like slow motion and carry on. And also I think it was a nice element to place the nature side of it in the projections, because it kind of felt like time is moving slower here, and we're exploring something that probably is not as happy, but as audience we were receiving a sense of peace seeing that.
I really wish I got to see this evening. It
Yeah.
sounds great to see a mix of work. I really like when you see different programs alongside each other, actually.
Yeah, and it's great to see in a venue like Chisenhale, because it's not a conventional black box theatre. And also for the audience members, I felt really close to the dancers and to the works, and also in the interval to be able to see the performers and have a chat. And it brings kind of a different experience to come and see the shows, not just sitting down and be there, but actually feel that you are a bit more part of it.
Yeah,
so,
something a bit more connected and collective about
yeah.
watching dance,
Yeah.
which, it's nice because it's something that can bring people together, and nice to see it in that kind of format that emphasises that as well.
Rachel, do you want to talk about the other work that you saw?
Yes. So the other work I saw in March was Jasmin Vardimon's new work for her company called Now. And this was in celebration of 25th anniversary of the company. So it's also kind of retrospective of some of the past works, interwoven with, I believe, some new moments. Kind of coming together in the past with where the company are at now. And I think like...
Where did you see it?
Oh yeah, I saw it, thanks for asking. I saw it at Sadler's Wells East, and it was the first time, I've been there. Back to that new venue. We've been quite a few times since with Dance Reflections. I've really liked it as a venue, like, for this work as well. Because you kind of, if you've been there, the seats are kind of more given that down view on the stage. You kind of, a bit of like at it and down at the same time. But for this work, it worked like really nicely because there were moments of projection in it. And quite like a clever, fun use of projection, and that the dancers would be doing something on the stage, and then the visual that projected offered kind of different perspective on that. So like they had this moment where they had a rope and the dancers were doing things on the floor, but on the projection it looked like they were balancing on a tightrope. And that was quite fun to just see both elements at the same time. But also it's interesting that really easily you just kind of watched the projected visual and kind of got lost in that world that they were creating. And I think that was kind of some of the really like beautiful, stronger moments of the show for me.
Was it a good experience overall?
Yeah, I'd say it was a mixed experience for me watching Now, if I'm totally honest. I think the projection elements worked really well, and there were other like really visually strong moments, which I think is something that often comes across in Jasmin's choreography, these strong visual moments that she creates through physicality and also through these visual images as well. And in this one, there were also moments that I think lent towards more dance theatre or dance theatre that, for me felt the stronger moments where the dancers got to play with character or maybe just more in their relationships with each other. So there were some duets that were really beautiful, where the dancers had these moments of interaction in terms of emotion, but also where the choreography felt really detailed and precise and just really managed to convey through a body like a whole range of like human feeling. And I think that's the moments that were really strong and stood out in this piece. Also actually, I think it was near the beginning, they came on with like these big white flags I did some choreography with. Again, that was quite a striking image in another way, and that moment and bit following it had a lot of reference to protest. I think it's just always quite striking when dance can offer a reflection on society in that way. And obviously I feel protest obviously being something that's probably relevant throughout the company's history, but also particularly relevant now. And obviously this piece is about current times and the current moments of the company. So there was nice elements like that, but came through in the work.
And it sounds like there was a lot to dive into.
There was a lot to dive into, and I think this is actually for me why it was a mixed experience, in that it was an hour and a half, all the way through, no interval, and I think there was a lot of content in that time. And so there were those moments like I've described that really kind of stood out and stuck with you, which I think there always are moments in dance where, which stick in your memory. But maybe in this piece there were those really strong elements, and then others that just kind of faded into the background a bit. And it did feel a lot within one framework for one piece. But within that also the dancers, I would have to say, were amazing. Because there was a lot. And as if, like, I think as is typical of this choreography, it's very physical a lot of the time. But I thought they were all like really amazing dancers, and also there was, I think in this work it allowed a lot of their individuality to come through, which is always nice to see in dance. So for me a mixed experience.
And from those two works that you watched this month of March, what were like your main takeaway, or what was on your mind after seeing both?
Yeah, because we were talking about this like immediate reaction when you come out of the theatre, which I feel like when you're writing reviews it's harder to like express and put across. I think for me, maybe with Jasmin Vardimon, I was like, oh, I wish I'd seen like there's a couple of like older works that I've not got to see, and I think some of the moments in this piece made me think, I wish I'd actually seen those and I could piece it all together, like which bits have come from which works. And then with Tirabasso's in the bushes, I think my first thought was like, wow, that was a lot. That was like ridiculous, absurd, but in like a really fun, positive way. And I think with that piece, as I said, it was just like, you just felt quite uplifted. I think just the way the dancers had like just gone for it with this, with their physicality and with their voice. It just felt like kind of a smiley, fun reaction coming out of that work. How about you with the mixed bill you saw at Chisenhale? What was your kind of like immediate like experience, reaction when you came out of that?
I had it was really on my mind, the power of community and building that community, not only what's going on in the work but also around. Because as we were talking about, Chisenhale has that community environment and feeling, and I think it was a really nice fit for those works, diving into connections and relation with each other. It really felt like going to see a dance show, you're also part of that community and you can feel comfortable sitting down, absorb what you want to receive, but be part of something else. It really felt warm and with that sense of community. So I think it's a great feeling to finish after an evening of performances.
Nice, that's great, and it's nice that fitted in with a centre like Chisenhale as well. Like, really nice combination. I think that's all for our reviews for March. It's been lovely to try out this way of talking about work, and have a look at our episode on the Dance Reflections Festival, which will be talking about a lot more dance works that we saw in March, and hopefully we'll be back at the end of April with some shows that we've seen across that month.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining.